What's up, guys? We're back in another deep shot video. I know I haven't done one in 2 weeks, but that was because I was kind of just letting the playoffs play out. So if you guys want another playoff video, that's gonna be coming out next week. But for this week, I thought we'd take a step back from the current NBA and go to another NBA all-time discussion, which is the top three, NBA players of all time at each position. So I'm going to go through every single NBA position and list the three best players for that position in order. So I'm going to start off with point guard. At number one, I have Magic Johnson. I think this is pretty standard for every single NBA fan. Some could say Steph Curry, and obviously this is a valid, I guess, a valid response. But I think Magic Johnson is still better than Steph Curry at the time being, and Steph might have to win, something else just to put him over the top. But for now, Steph Curry is going to be, Magic Johnson is going to be the best point guard of all time. So second on my list, I have Steph Curry. As I just mentioned, Steph Curry is very close to Magic Johnson in this all-time list, as he is sometimes, rarely, surpasses him in some people's lists. Steph obviously has changed the game in many ways with his threes, and just overall play style, creating a dynasty with the Warriors, just as Magic did with the Lakers. So, although I think Magic does have the edge because he's the extra championship and has more Finals MVPs than Steph, so that's why Magic is ahead of him. But I do have Steph Curry as the second best point guard of all time. That is a close race, and it could be changed as Steph's career ends. Now, third on our list, I think it can go to multiple different people. Go to Isaiah Thomas, Oscar Robertson. Some would even say Chris Paul or John Stockton, but I think I'm gonna go with Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas is one of those guys who I think a lot of people forget about due to the I guess hate that Bad Boys Pistons team get, but people forget that Isaiah Thomas was legitimately a great player. Beat Magic, MJ, and Larry Bird. All three of them were the only one to do so, and he actually beat MJ the most amount of times out of MJ's career. So they have a bit of a beef, if you could say. But I have Isaiah Thomas has two championships, two Finals MVPs, led a mini dynasty in a sense. Actually, no, he has three championships, two or three championships, and really Isaiah Thomas led that bad boy since he was the ringleader of their team. And although their play style gets hated on, they still were a great dynasty in a sense. So that's the reason I have Isaiah Thomas as the third best point guard of all time. So that's the point guards. Now we're going to go on to shooting guards. I think this list is a lot more set in stone. So we're going to start off with number one. Number one, we have Michael Jordan. This is most people's GOAT. Some say LeBron. I disagree. If you can go watch my other video if you want, a little more depth into the all-time conversations, just in general. But Michael Jordan, six championships, six Finals MVPs, a lot of MVPs, DPOY. There's nothing really against him. Great scorer, great defender. The only you can say as a knock on his career is his lack of playmaking, but I think he made up for it with his scoring. So MJ is pretty solidly the greatest shooting guard of all time. Second is MJ's successor, who is Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant, if you hear other people talk about him, he said when he was a rookie he was gonna win 5 championships, 3 Finals MVPs, and he won 5 championships. He said he's gonna be like MJ, and was one of the closest people to be compared to MJ of all time. So Kobe Bryant, he gets a lot of respect. He's one of the most efficient scorers of all time. One of the greatest scorers of all time. One had two mini done had his three-peat with Shaq, and then his two, so I guess two mini dynasties in a sense, or one dynasty and one mini dynasty, whatever way you want to put it. That's not the point. But Kobe Bryant did really run the 20s to the 2010s. So that's why Kobe Bryant is the second best shooting guard of all time. So third, it can go to people like Allen Iverson, but I think it's Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade was real, like really people, I guess, tend to forget about Dwayne Wade because of the later part of his career where he kind of fell off. But Prime D Wade was an MVP candidate, was a Finals MVP winner, and he won a championship in his third year, which is insane because if you think about it, Dwayne Wade winning in his third year is the equivalent of Luka Doncic winning in 2022 when they lost in the Western Conference Finals to the Warriors. I think that's absolutely absurd. And on top of Dwayne Wade winning his first championship, he also won two more with LeBron and Chris Bosh. But so that's Dwayne Wade was a all-time blocks leader for a shooting guard. He was a good defender, a good scorer, really had an all-around game. So that's why I have Dwayne Wade as the third best shooting guard of all time. On the topic of shooting guards, I wanted to mention Anthony Edwards. I know he's not even close on an all-time list, but the things he's been doing in the playoffs is actually insane. Nuggets are already down 0-2. It's a tough road for them to climb, and they won even without Rudy Gobert, who was becoming a dad. So, I think it's pretty absurd that a guy that young could have that much leadership and that much of an increase in production during the playoffs, kind of like Jimmy Butler or Jamal Murray. So, yeah, I do think that I should mention Anthony Edwards as it is a current thing. But anyway, back to the concept of the video. So next up we got the small forwards. Small forwards I think are pretty cut and dry. So number one, LeBron James. This is kind of like MG where it's pretty set in stone. I don't think really anyone's gonna go against LeBron here. He's being considered the GOAT for some people. 4 championships, all-time scoring leader, 4 times Finals MVP. He has almost every award in the book except DPOY, which is a bit of a knock on him, but not really anything enough to make him go 1 or 2. So LeBron is easily the best small forward of all time. So second we got, I'm gonna go with Larry Bird. Larry Bird is the guy, is kind of like Magic in a sense that they were the two rivals like LeBron and Curry of this era. It was Bird and Magic in that era. Bird and Magic are neck and neck in all-time rankings. Bird is around is around 4. Is around 5. Sorry. Bird is around 5. Magic's around 4 in all-time rankings. So they're neck and neck, and I think Larry Bird, he was a great defender in his prime, a great offensive player, a great playmaker, a great shooter. Had everything, had a championship success, 3 MVPs. He beat voter fraud. So, voter fatigue. So I think in total, I'm gonna go Larry Bird as the second greatest small forward of all time. Now third, it can go multiple ways. I was first thinking of Julius Erving, who was again a great player for his era in the AB, but most of his work was in the ABA, not the NBA. So kind of deduct for that. So I guess for me, the third best small forward is gonna go to Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is mostly a top 13 all time in most people's lists, being top 10 all time in scoring, least amount of games, the most efficient scorer of all time, while also having 2 championships, 2 Finals MVP, and an MVP. I know people don't like Kevin Durant and say his championships were frauds. In a sense, they were because they played with the greatest team of all time, the 2017 and 2018 Warriors. So KD's gonna be at 3. KD hasn't really won outside of that Warriors team. That failure after failure after that series, so I can't give him any more credit. So I think KD's the third greatest small forward of all time. So fourth on our list, we have power forwards. I think for my best power forward of all time, I'm gonna go with Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan and LeBron James kind of had many duels in the 2010s when LeBron James won the Heat. Tim Duncan has 5 championships, although he had a very good team to surround him for all of these championships. But obviously, you need help to win a championship, so he had Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and then had David Robinson for some of his championships as well. Tim Duncan was not the flashiest player, but 25 points per game, great defender. Really was he one of the most fundamental players ever. So Tim Duncan is the best power forward of all time. So second on the best power forwards list, I was thinking of just players in general. Uh, this it's very like interesting. So I was thinking of Karl Malone, Dirk Nowitzki, and Kevin Garnett were the 3 I was thinking of. And I think, in my opinion, I'm gonna put Dirk at 3. Dirk was one of the greatest scorers of all time. He's top 10 in all-time scoring, has an amazing championship and Finals MVP run, and was a great player for most of his career. I think that Mavericks, if they kept Steve Nash, could have won a lot more than they did, but I think Dirk is the second greatest power forward of all time. So for third, I think it's down to Karl Malone and Kevin Garnett, and you can really go any way on this, but I think Karl Malone just barely edges out Kevin Garnett. Karl Malone is the third leading scorer in NBA history, I believe. He was a great scorer. Actually, John Stockton made 2 NBA Finals. Unfortunately, they played Jordan, both of them, so they lost. But Karl Malone was a great player. Some people could give Kevin Garnett the credit because he did win a championship and was a legitimate great defender. But I think I'm gonna put Karl Malone at the third greatest power forward of all time. So finally, we're on to center. And for the greatest center of all time, I'm gonna go Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's the second leading scorer of all time. 4 MVPs, 3 or 4 MVPs, 6 championships. Was great at everything. Really, like no, I don't think there's ever a knock on Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's also played with Magic, played with Oscar Robertson. Yeah, I don't think he goes around third in all top 10 rankings, so I don't think anyone's gonna disagree with Kareem being the greatest center of all time. So in my all-time ranking video, I had Bill Russell 7th or 8th, sorry. And I think I'm gonna stick to that and go Bill Russell as the second greatest center of all time. Bill Russell, I'm gonna give him the edge due to his championships. 10 or 11 championships is actually absurd, and the fact that he did this as a player and a coach is also even more crazy. He really ran that 60s era. He being the other great center of that era, Will Chamberlain, every single time. So I'm gonna make Bill Russell the second greatest center of all time, mostly off of his winning. And my third greatest center of all time, I was thinking between Will and Shaq, and I decided to go with Shaq again because of championships. Shaq has 4 championships, 2 MVPs, scoring title, and almost was unanimous, one off. Also considered by many to be the most dominant player ever in his prime. So Shaq, I'd chose Shaq over Wilt because Wilt only has 1 championship and Shaq has 4. That was my deal breaker, I guess. So I'm gonna have to go with Shaq as the third greatest center of all time. So those are all the players, and that's my list. Thanks for listening, and a video about the playoffs will be coming out next week. So until now, peace.